Hi, creative friends. This is Freya, and thank you so much for being here. So, it is a cold, gloomy day outside, and it's the perfect time for a cup of tea and meeting over the fireside. So, today we are going to talk about Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And what I want to cover today is how do we get from the shadow aspect of our archetypes into the light filled aspects, into healing? Well, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? How to alchemize our pain and turn it into gold. This is our life's work. So before I forget and before I start, I just wanted to say that for my last video, when I edited it, um, I turned it into black and white. And the reason why is because it's really gloomy where I am. And even though, like right now, it shouldn't be dark outside, it's completely dark. And so I have to turn my art lights on, so I have enough lighting when I'm recording. And when I leave it in color, it really washes me out completely. And I look like a ghost. And I don't want to look like a ghost. So I just found that when I put it in black and white, I just show up like better. So that's why I put it in black and white. It shouldn't affect anything other than just the aesthetics of it. But anyways, I wrote down some notes again on my little sheet of paper here so I don't go off track and ramble on incessantly. But getting back to women who run, excuse me, women who run with the wolves, talking about archetypes and talking about how do we turn our shadow aspects into the light filled aspects. So, how do we heal basically? And for this, there is no shortcuts. It's we have to do the work. And what is the work? Well, the work is we have to love ourselves and not some wishy washy kind of half baked idea of love. Self care is great, and I'm a huge proponent of self care. But in present day, I feel like a lot of self care has been kind of distilled into taking a hot bath, lighting some candles, and maybe purchasing some bubble bath, and I'm all for that. That is great. That's wonderful. I'm a huge lover of lighting candles. But that is the icing on the cake. That is not the cake. The cake is to truly love ourselves, mean that we have to make difficult decisions. We have to not try to fit in, but we have to, um, when we try to fit in, to places that we don't belong, to relationships that we don't belong to, to work situations that we don't belong in, with people that we don't belong. When we're just trying to fit in, we are actually um, we're restricting and constricting ourselves. We're having to cut off parts of our psyche in order to fit in. So the goal is to love ourselves so that we belong to ourselves, not trying to fit into anything external to ourselves, but to truly and fully belong to ourselves, to be in alignment with who we are. And that way we will if we belong to ourselves in a true sense, then we will find our tribe where everybody can belong, who belongs to that tribe, because it's a place where differences are celebrated. They are welcomed. We love diverse points of view, and we allow people to be their strange, weird, wonderful selves. We're not so attached to a belief system that belief system becomes so rigid and it overrides connection and the people who are standing in front of us, including ourselves. So when I talk about loving ourselves, it is making those difficult decisions. Sometimes we have to do things we may not want to do. Sometimes we have to leave people to go on their way, just as we go on our way. And sometimes we just have to, do things we don't want to do. So when I talk about loving ourselves, I mean it in its truest sense. And so, what are the tools of us loving ourselves? Well, I mean, that's a huge question, but I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. The very first thing I would say is we have to invite the truth, the full truth, the truth about what happened to us, the truth about the people in our lives who have hurt us, who have wounded us, and the people that we have wounded. We've got to have a full accounting, an honest look at the entirety of everything. So, of course, the things that happened to us when we were children, we cannot be held accountable for those things, I believe, because, we are in the trust and care of our families, our societies, our cultures, etc. But we do have to look at what we have done as adults, the people who have hurt us, as well as the people that we have hurt. And we have to invite the truth in. So we have to create a very safe space where we can really take the time to sit down and get honest with ourselves. Um, Unfortunately, um, I have been in this situation where I have had a lot of people that were so entrenched in denial, and perhaps I was that person too. So I have a lot of compassion for it. And I'm not saying it from a space of judgment at all. Um, but it is unfortunate in the sense that if we live our whole lives in denial and we're so detached from reality, where we cannot create a safe space for truth, we end up cutting off parts of ourselves, of our psyches, that that don't allow us to move from the shadow to the light. We are going to remain in the shadow. So I would say the number one thing to do is to create a safe space to invite truth in to our lives. Um, and in um, with that inviting truth in, the twin to that, the pairing to that, the other part of that is we have to let go of judgment. In the beginning, when I first started doing this work, it was probably about, I want to say about 10 to 12 years ago. I went for therapy. I committed to therapy for 3 years, and I saw a trauma specialist. I was so lucky that I got somebody who was actually very, very well qualified to deal with trauma. And I saw him for 3 full years. I went once a week, sometimes twice a week. And one of the things I really had to do was let go of judgment of myself, the things that I have done that I am not proud of, and I had to let go of judging other people. Because in the beginning, it's very easy and almost natural to fall into the victim mode of, you know, poor me. And then it's just a never ending cycle, because it just feeds on itself and it becomes a snowball that kind of rolls down the hill. Now, of course, when we are children, we really are victims. And this is a tricky part because, of course, that is a given. When we are children, the things that happen to us, we are not responsible for. So, in that sense, we are victims when we are children. But when we become adults, now we slowly have to become responsible for our wounds and for healing our wounds because nobody else can heal our wounds. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to become the person who now comes and rescues us. The person that, you know, our child selves was wanting to come and, you know, to come and rescue us when we were children. We now have to become that person to go back and rescue our child from our childhood. The people who hurt us are not going to they are not going to heal us. They have no interest in that, and they probably most likely have no capacity for it, even if they wanted to. So now it becomes our job to heal ourselves, and we have to get out of the victim mode. And in order to do that, we have to let go of judgment. I know It sounds so counterintuitive, and it is a bitter pill to swallow. And I struggled with this. I struggled with this for years because it's so tempting to cling on to that victim mode. It's so tempting to be in self righteous and a lot of times very justified anger, rage, just at the feeling of being betrayed and abused and violated, um, chronically. This is not a one or two time thing. This is chronic. Um, and it is so easy to just remain in that victim mode. But the thing that really helped me was to get out of that victim mode and come into a space of non judgment. This is an honest accounting of the truth and non judgment. They go together. So, the third thing I would say is we have to get in alignment with ourselves. So, what does that mean? Okay, so the first thing I did was I looked at my belief systems. That is super, super important. And I talked about this in my in a previous video, so I'm not going to go in depth into belief systems, but belief systems are super, super important. It's the if we're I'll make the analogy that we're computers, and when we are downloaded with faulty belief systems that don't serve us, that don't empower us, then it's as if we have, we've been downloaded with faulty programming. So now we have to identify the fact that we have the faulty programming, and then we have to, get rid of the the faulty programming, and then we have to, establish new beliefs, new programming that is going to empower us, that is going to serve us. So I would say the first thing is we've got to confront our belief system, and see if it's, are these beliefs that I want to have. And beliefs can be really, really, really sneaky and tricky. And I'll give it just right off the top of my head without thinking about it too much. I'll give you a belief that I held that I didn't even know that I held, and it comes from my childhood. And it is the belief that girls, women, are not equal to males. And I come from a very toxic, patriarchal family culture. And Indian culture is probably one of the most restrictive cultures towards women. So I, I thought that I had resolved that. I thought, well, yeah, sure, that's what my family believed, but I didn't believe it. But, these sneaky little things, it just kind of sneaks up in there. It just kind of shows up in your relationships. It shows up in how you show up in relationships. It shows up in, what you tolerate, what you, don't expect from yourself. It shows up in a million and one different ways. So beliefs can be super, super sneaky. There's no easy fix, there's no getting around it. You just have to really confront your belief system. The second thing is intuition. Intuition is our inner navigation system. It is our guide, and the more we use it, it's like a muscle. It is going to get stronger. So when we listen to our intuition, we pay attention to it, we act upon it, then we strengthen it and we don't cause it to go into hiding. Another one is our emotions. We've got to create a safe space for all of our emotions. We've got to hold our emotions, feel our emotions, express our emotions when it's appropriate. And, sometimes we have to tackle our emotions and we have to burn it off. Like if we've got a lot of anger, we've got to find healthy ways that we can express that anger, whether it's journaling or, running or working out or whatever. So we have got to get in alignment with all of those things. We've got to get in, our belief systems, you know, we've got to get that in order. Then we've got to go down to our heart and we've got to make space for our emotions. And then we've got to, listen to our gut, pay attention, honor our intuition, listen to our body, be grateful to our body. So we've got to be in alignment with all of who we are. We can't compartmentalize things like, oh, this is over here and this is over here. When we are in alignment with who we are, we can show up in the world as who we are. Um, we can be fully who we are without our masks, and um, that is how we, turn our pain into gold. That is a huge thing, to be able to show up as we are. Okay, so the fourth thing I would say is we have to be humble, 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 humble. Humility is such an underrated um, characteristic, especially in Western cultures. But when we're humble, it allows us to not be rigid in our beliefs and our belief systems. When we are rigid, like when there's no room to grow, no room to confront our belief systems, like we just take it as the ultimate truth. Like we don't even stop and think, is this is this even logical? Like, does this even work? Like, um, it- you know, uh, but humility is allows us to be looser, to flow, to have grace, to have ease. Another thing that humility does is it allows us to build stronger relationships, not only with ourselves but with others. um, it also allows us to be in a continual state of learning, like to not say, well, I'm an adult now, I know everything. Or, I'm just going to stop growing, I'm going to stop learning. So it's being humble allows us to say, I really don't know a lot. I really have no idea what I'm doing. And now we can um, just, accept that and just continue learning. And we can take knowledge from wherever it comes. Like a lot of times I'll listen to my daughter and she is really smart and she is really wise. And a lot of things she says makes a lot of sense. And I'll be like, wow, that's a great idea. I never thought about that. But if I was not humble and if I was stuck in my rigid belief system and I was like, well, I'm the parent, and because that's the way I was raised, I'm a parent and I know what's best, and blah blah blah. Well, you just don't allow what something that could really help you, that could really change you, that could transform you, make your life easier, give you a new perspective. It doesn't allow for new information to come to you. um, Another thing that humility does is it creates emotional intelligence. And because I'm more willing now um, to listen to somebody else's point of view. I don't have to be like, well, I'm right, and um, that's the only way things are, et cetera, et cetera. It allows me to get to understand where somebody else is coming from, because I want to know. I'm curious, I'm humble, I'm like, hey, I want to know who you are, I want to know why you feel this way, what's going on. um, and I find that being humble ushers in peace. Oh my goodness. Peace, 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 worth more than all the gold in the world. So I have been this person, and I have been around people who are operating in a state of not being humble, because you're so stuck in a state of fear and insecurity that you just wouldn't even think to be humble, because you're just being controlled by your fears and your survival instincts, and your insecurities are just huge and they just take over everything. um, and when you're running um, from that kind of programming, um, you're so focused on trying to prove yourself, trying to one up somebody, trying to pretend like you're so strong, you're invincible, you have all these walls up. But when you are in a state of humility, which is not being a doormat, that is a completely different energy. A doormat energy is a weak energy, and it's a lack of strength. It is lack of boundaries. um, but being humble is when you're just like, whew, I accept myself, I love myself, and I accept you and I love you. We can both coexist together. we don't have to fight for, you know, my way or my perspective. And as long as we're both being respectful towards each other and we both have our boundaries and, you know, we're both open minded, like there's peace. It just brings such a sense of peace. Um, so I would say being humble is super, super important and very underrated. Uh, okay, number 5. Um, I would say I would say gratitude. Be grateful. Whew, this is another thing that's very underrated. Like a lot of times we think, oh, we have to wait for something big to happen for us to be grateful. But the times when gratitude counts the most is the times when we feel like we have nothing to be grateful for. But I find that with gratitude, there is only one rule. And the one rule is to simply be authentic, to be genuine for what you are grateful for. Like it doesn't matter what it is. It could be something so small. It could be, you know, oh, I'm just so grateful that, you know, the tree outside my window is turning these gorgeous colors because it's fall. And as long as it is, you're truly grateful for it. Like, you know, you're not just making something up. You're just being honest. Um, that is the only rule. It doesn't matter how small it is. Like, I'm really grateful for my feet. They take me wherever I want to go, wherever I need to go. Because, you know, there might come a day when my feet may not do that. My legs may not do that. So I am super grateful that, you know, my body is so kind to me. Um, and I just find that, you know, when I am grateful, it is a soothing, healing balm. I remember the, like I said, I committed to therapy for 3 full years. And the first, I would say, year, it was so difficult, brutal. I mean, it was really, really a tough stretch. That first year, it was like all these emotions were coming up, feelings, memories, images. You know, it was just like I was bogged down a lot of times. It just felt like I was like walking through quicksand. And one of the things that got me through was gratitude, just being grateful. Like every single day, I would pick 3 things or 5 things that I was grateful for, and I would write them down. And as long as what I was grateful for, like was coming from a space of just being authentic, like being true to myself. I wasn't just making up some, you know, stuff that just didn't have any resonance with me. Um, Gratitude was the balm that really, it just soothed me. And it really got me through some tough times. Now, I would say the sixth thing is the sixth point um, of our tools is to allow ourselves to become empowered. A lot of times, I know this is true for me, we play small because that's what is required of us to fit into spaces we, you know, now looking back on it, I didn't, I don't want to fit into those spaces. Um, but, you know, we're trying so desperately to fit in. And of course, when we're children, we have to fit in. It's a matter of survival. Like we have to fit into our surroundings, to our families and culture and society. Like there is no other way because that's how we survive. But when we're adults, a lot of times we play small because that is what is required of us in order to fit into these places and relationships and situations and work environments that we really don't belong. You know, and as I get older, I realize like I don't want to fit in. I don't want to fit in. I want to stand out. I want to stand out in my belonging. I want to belong to myself. I want to belong to my life. I want to belong to my path, to my purpose, to my work. I want to belong. And in the belonging, I'm going to stand out. I'm going to stand out in my belonging. I'm not going to fit in. So these are some of the ways, some of the important tools that I have learned in order to turn our pain, to turn our suffering into gold, to alchemize it, to move from the shadow aspects of our archetype into the light aspects of our archetype. And I just want to reiterate, because I did mention this in one of my previous videos, this is not an all or nothing proposition. It's not that we are trying to be 100% in our light. That is not a reasonable expectation, and it's just going to set us up for failure. We are human beings. We are going to fail, and it's okay to fail. We learn from our failing. We become humble in our failing, and we are human. Sometimes we're going to fail, and sometimes we are going to win. We want to welcome all of those experiences into our lives. So this is hard work. It is it is not a, oh, we're going to try for, a perfection. There's no winning. There's no winning at this. What I mean by that is, it's not a game. It's not a game to be won. um, Sometimes the victories are small. Sometimes it's, you're so depressed and you can't make it out of bed, and you're like, God, if I can just get out of bed and take a shower and, make myself a cup of tea, that's a win. Sometimes we're going through really difficult periods in our lives. We're dealing with a lot of, um, huge um, crumbling of belief systems, confronting our past. This is hard work. This is really difficult work, and which is why a lot of people do not do this work. They stay in their shadow. They make no attempt to heal themselves. They make no attempt to grow. They stay stuck because doing this work is really, really difficult. So give yourself a break. If you're on this path, like, it's not a game to be won. It's sometimes the wins are really, really small. They're so small that we can miss them. Like, we might think, oh my God, like, it's this huge win that, is just it's just so big, and it's 100%, it's us being 100% right all the time. And no, sometimes our wins are really, really small. Sometimes our wins are just us going outside and walking under the skies and looking up at the moon, and just, being so grateful and saying, hey, I'm so grateful to be on this path. I'm so filled with gratitude. Sometimes our wins are so small, and each win counts. So don't discount that. So, anyways, I hope I haven't been rambling on too much. I hope that you guys will leave some comments or some questions or some feedback. I really appreciate you watching this, and I'm learning as I go along, as well. So thank you so much for being so patient with me. Okay, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.